So Canon is planning some very real moves this month, and in some cases just in the next few days. Sigma, Viltrox, and DJI are circling some key launches on the calendar that could shift your buying decisions for the rest of the year. So let's jump in and talk about it. So first, a name that we've been talking about more and more, which is Viltrox. They've got an APS-C ultra-wide that just got a little bit more interesting for Nikon Z shooters. Now, according to Nikon rumors, Viltrox is preparing to announce a new AF 9mm f2.8 Air, part of their wide Air series, APS-C lens for the Nikon Z mount. Now, it's a compact ultra-wide option aimed squarely at Z mount APS-C bodies. And while full specs aren't necessarily listed yet, the Air naming convention and Viltrox's track record suggest a small, lightweight build. Now, availability is already pretty clear. Viltrox lenses are going to be available through B&H and internationally through PerGear, as well as the official Viltrox website. So if you're a ZFC, Z30, or Z50 user looking for a budget-friendly way to get dramatic, and I mean dramatic, ultra super wide fields of view, a native 9mm autofocus prime could be a practical piece of kit for your travel, vlogging, tight space needs, as well as doing establishing shots. So I'll be on the lookout for an official announcement and full specs as well as pricing. But next up, let's talk about Sigma's September lineup. And honestly, it looks pretty stacked. September 9th seems very popular. We've got a potential Canon event. Sigma's releasing some stuff. Apple is doing their big event on September 9th. I guess Techtober is now Techtember? I don't know. But Sigma's September 9th drop looks to be unusually balanced. We've got a travel zoom, a fast wide prime, and a tele prime with video-friendly behaviors. Now, according to Sony Alpha rumors, 3 full frame autofocus lenses are coming on September 9th for the Sony E and Leica L mounts, with pre-orders opening the same day across major retailers like B&H, Adorama, Amazon, and more. The first lens is the Sigma 20-200 f3.5 to f6.3. So this is a versatile full frame zoom. We've kind of talked about it before here on the channel. It's designed to keep size and weight in check, under 600 grams, with a 72mm filter thread. So it's not a tiny lens, but the footprint is said to be similar to comparable Canon lenses. For hybrid shooters, the range covers ultra-wide to telephoto, all in a single lens. This is going to be handy for travel, events, documentary work, where changing lenses isn't necessarily practical, and where, to be quite honest, at the long end, you don't necessarily need all of that light capture. Next, we're talking about the Sigma 35 f1.2. For the record, I'm currently shooting on a Sigma f1.4. The updated fast prime is about 25% shorter and lighter than its predecessor, while staying full frame, and is going to be available for the E and L mount. The lens I'm shooting on now is only available in the EF mount. You don't get these lenses as Canon shooters. If Sigma maintains its optical ambitions here, this could be a go-to for low light, environmental portraits, and cinematic video work where subject separation is key, but now in a more manageable package. But speaking of portraits, Sigma is also going to be launching a 135mm f1.4. This is a serious portrait / telephoto option with a 105mm filter thread. You heard that right. It's got a weight of over 1.3 kilograms and has a removable tripod collar. You're going to need it for that weight and especially for that front element. It's described as having no focus breathing, which is a big plus for video shooters. Expect a classic black finish and quality overall build aimed at stability and precision. All 3 of these lenses are scheduled to be announced on September 9th, with purchasing already in place. So if you've been waiting for a lighter 35mm without compromising the aperture, or you need a do-everything travel zoom, or you need an established tele for video-friendly breathing control, awesome portraits, this trio could really fit into a number of different kits. But another update that we're seeing actually is from Canon, and that is the potential for an ultra-wide macro. Canon may be pushing into wider angle macro lens designs that look a tier above the current STM setup. So according to Canon rumors, we've got a new patent application that details several ultra-wide macro lenses designed at offering 1.0 and 1.2 magnification. These lenses are a bit more complex than Canon's existing STM grade wide angle macros. For example, the current RF24 f1.8 macro is IS STM has 11 elements and 8 groups, while the patent describes designs with roughly 15 elements across 8 to 10 groups, as well as having image stabilization. Now, Canon doesn't explicitly call out the IS group in the patent, but stabilization is specifically noted. And the documentation includes 2 specific examples. One is an RF 21mm f2.8 IS macro with a 1.0 magnification, but in that case the image circle is slightly smaller than full frame, so this one might be pointed towards our APS-C cameras like the R7 or the R7 Mark II that's going to be coming out very soon, or potentially the APS-C cinema camera that we're expecting. Additionally is a 24mm f2.8 IS macro with a 1.2 super macro magnification, again with a smaller than full frame image circle. This particular version would require a high amount of stretching to fill a full frame sensor. But also, as an acknowledgement, ultra-wide macro brings lighting challenges. You need to get very close to your subject at high magnification. And while these are relatively fast lenses at f2.8, you need additional lighting like an accessory or an illuminator on the end of your lens or very close, which is something Canon has done before with the EFM 28mm f3.5 macro IS STM, which had integrated lights. The short minimum focus distance common to ultra-wide lenses can also be useful for creative perspectives and even outside strict macro work. All of this sits in the context of Canon's current lineup, which already has cost-effective wide-angle macro options like the 24mm and 35mm macro with IS but STM focusing. These patent designs could represent a higher end tier, potentially filling the gap between the STM and the L series. So potentially bringing in the USM or VCM quality without the red ring, which hopefully means that it doesn't come with the same kind of cost. As always with patents, this shows active research. It's not a guaranteed product, and if Canon sees the demand between the STM and the L ranges, these could potentially evolve. But for now, it's a smart window into where the brand is exploring. But speaking of exploring, now let's talk about DJI and the L Mount alliance. It seems that rumors have hit a fever pitch, and there, I think, is enough talk out there to say that what has been a rumor for years might actually finally be happening, which is that DJI is going to be entering the market with a full frame camera, specifically on the L Mount. Now, according to L Rumors, whispers point to a September 15th announcement. It's another date that seems very popular for a full-frame L Mount camera from DJI with a boxy body reminiscent of Sony's FX3 and an integrated electronic viewfinder placed in the corner. Now, the rumor also claims that Hasselblad X2D2 color science and menu interfaces would be a part of this release, which is a plausible crossover given DJI's ownership of Hasselblad, at least majority ownership. Now, none of that is confirmed, but to be quite honest, it makes perfect sense. And on a side business note, if DJI took something like the sensors that they have in the Ronin, the color science that they already have investment in from Hasselblad, and they put all of that into a body that works on the L Mount, already getting access to a significant ecosystem of lenses, it seems like a no-brainer entrance into an existing market where they have already name cachet, and I think they could do exceptionally well. Now, on the sensor side, speculation ranges from a 44 megapixel sensor, like what we have in the Ronin series, to a partially stacked unit similar to what we have in the Lumix S1 II. Remember, DJI has relationships with a number of sensor manufacturers, and it's not uncommon for companies like Nikon to take sensors out of other brands and slot them in. You can kind of buy Sony sensors off the shelf. They have a whole business for this. Now, a lot of that is guessing, and the reporting stresses that this is still a wild rumor, and it's circulated since last year, so treat it carefully. But I will say that the L Mount Alliance rumor has suddenly hit a fever pitch in the last few days. And I don't know if that's just like social media, internet, YouTube echo chamber working here, but I don't normally see this much chatter unless there's something actually happening. Now, if accurate, an L-mounted DJI body would bring a new innovative player into the alliance alongside Panasonic and Leica, and would inevitably increase pressure on Sony and other established brands like Canon and Nikon. At minimum, it signals ongoing experimentation around hybrids that blur lines between cinema-centric bodies and compact stills-oriented designs. Now, if this lands as rumored, it could be a meaningful new option for L-mount users. So would you consider an L Mount DJI body if the ergonomics and color pipeline matched your workflow? Let me know down below. Now, moving back to Canon for just a minute, I want to mention again some details that we have on the R7 Mark II, because the timeline is jumping all over the place. We have the announcement for the EOS cinema camera expected in just a few days, less than a week now. But we continue to look closely at dates like September 15th, where there's also rumors of releases like the R7 and the R6 Mark III. And I talked about this in my last video, but I wanted to follow up because Digital Camera World says that the EOS R7 Mark II is reportedly in testing, but isn't expected for the next 4 to 6 months. But we also don't know if that's for announcement or shipping. It's not uncommon for Canon to announce cameras that then aren't available for a few months. And the rumored spec sheet, which we didn't really talk about much in the last video, is a 33 megapixel stacked CMOS sensor paired with the Digic X processor and the Digic accelerator, up to 40 frames per second burst with a fully electronic shutter. That may mean they're ditching the mechanical shutter, which is a rumor that we've been hearing. We're also hearing about pre-continuous shooting, 8.5 stops of in-body image stabilization, the ability to shoot 4K up to 120 in 10-bit with C-Log 3, and with the Digic accelerator comes the possibility of in-body image upscaling. Another bit of rumor that we keep hearing is that physically the camera is going to be larger, a body more similar to the R5 Mark II, with a more pronounced EVF bump, likely repositioned and potentially to accommodate eye autofocus, a repositioned joystick, and a rear LCD that tilts vertically, which is also a rumor that we've heard about the R6 Mark III. Now, if these changes stick, it would suggest an ergonomics update geared towards stability and high-speed shooting while retaining the flexibility for video. Again, I think this would be a very smart move on Canon's part. I feel like every Canon body that comes out has a new something. It's got a new button or a new switch, or they move the joystick. Let's just pause for a minute. Update the lineup. Give us the R6 Mark III, give us the R7, put them effectively in the exact same body as the R5. And then let these products compete in the market, not on software limitations that where they reduce the quality or the functionality of a camera through software. If you have a camera that has the Digic X and the Digic accelerator, it should be able to do most of the same things as the R5 Mark II. The R6 Mark III should be the lower megapixel version, probably not going to shoot 8K. Maybe if it shoots RAW, it doesn't shoot RAW at 6K, at least not internally. But you've got a full frame sensor with lower megapixels than the R5. And then give us the R7 with those same features, but the trade-off is the APS-C sensor. Now, a lot of this is still in rumor territory, but this paints a clear picture of where Canon is aiming with their highest end APS-C cameras. And if that timeline holds, then we should start seeing more substantial leaks before long. But one more Canon story, and this time we're talking about cinema cameras. Now, I mentioned this in my last video, but since that video came out just, 48 hours ago, we have new details about the EOS C50 and Canon's beeline for going up against Sony's FX series. Now, according to Canon rumors and Canon's own social media, Canon will be announcing a new cinema camera on September 9th. And Canon rumors says that it's going to be the C50, positioning it as a iteration of the R5C and targeting Sony's FX line. And if you remember the R5C, it was effectively a physically modified R5 to do more on the cinema side of things with heat management. Now, they fixed a lot of the heat issues with the R5 Mark II with more active cooling and just improved internals. But while the R5C was a super cool camera, it didn't have some of the, I'd say, like ergonomic features that we have come to expect from the Sony FX line. And I think Canon sees that as an opportunity. But unlike a rebadged R5 Mark II, this actually feels like the internals of the R6 Mark III turned into a cinema camera, even though it's going to be positioned as a replacement for the R5C. Because the specs aren't specifically confirmed, but the current guidance is listing a 32 megapixel sensor, which we've also been hearing about the R6 Mark III. 6K recording, that should sound familiar. 4K 120 with a crop, also something we should just harken back to previous rumors that we've heard. Triple base ISO, which would be a huge improvement in a Canon cinema camera at this level. Dual SD card slots, open gate recording, and a claim of 15 stops of dynamic range with support for C-Log 2 and C-Log 3. Canon will reportedly not use the same sensor as the R5 Mark II, which makes sense if you're trying to get the most amount of low light dynamic range possible. Reducing the number of megapixels, increasing the size of the pixels themselves would give you that additional low light, low noise performance and additional stops of dynamic range. This sounds a lot more like an R6C than a replacement of the R5C. Now, it'll be able to capture stills, but not in the same way as the R5Cs straddled the line for photographers. We're also expecting the possibility of a new lens being announced alongside the camera, though the exact timing wasn't nailed down and no official assets have surfaced yet. Separately, we have some blurry images from a new camera that's circulating from a German YouTuber showing a fully articulating screen. Another rumor that we've heard both about the R6 Mark III, the R7 Mark II, and now about this new cinema camera. But now we're hearing that this image might not even be a Canon camera, it might actually be the Nikon ZR, or potentially the new DJI body that we just talked about. But with a reported announcement just ahead, this could give Canon a smaller body, cinema-focused option in the RF ecosystem that speaks directly to creators who build rigs around compact cameras, but still need advanced codecs, dynamic range, and high frame rates. So with the September 9th timeline, we'll have answers soon, especially around the sensor behavior and codecs, and how OpenGate will be implemented. Canon is not traditionally known for giving away cool features like this in a product which is why I feel Sony has been able to kind of fill that space with the FX2, with the FX3, with the FX30 as a more dedicated cinema camera that also shoots stills, that has awesome features, and that isn't $5,000 or $6,000. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm nervous about this. If they do this right, this could be huge for Canon, especially on the cinema side. And if they do it wrong, I think it'll paint a picture for creators, at least creators that are looking for hybrid solutions like this at these mid-range prosumer price points between $2,500 and $4,000, that Canon they're not interested in you. And they're not interested in you for their lenses. But Sony and Sigma and Tamron and now DJI will happily take your money. But that's it for the news that we have on the camera side of things. If you want to support what I'm doing here, consider becoming a channel member. It's $1. And if you're looking to book a photo or video session, all the details are below, including links to some of the gear that we talked about today, as well as my gear links and lists and everything that I use here in the studio. Those links do go to help the channel, but as always, the easiest way to support what I'm doing here is to hit like and subscribe. Those are always free, and they go a long way to helping me grow here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.